All right, welcome back to best hour of their day. Maybe you can tell I'm laughing as I talk because Joe and I were chatting right before I hit the record button and it just got me smiling. But welcome, Joe, to the podcast. For those that don't know who Joe is, as I'm just getting to know him a little bit better, level 2 CrossFit trainer and online nutrition coach. But the real reason I reached out to you was our mutual friend, Joe Bauer.
Yep.
So, like Joe, you've lived somewhat of a nomadic lifestyle. Maybe not quite as nomadic. That's impressive what Joe is doing.
It is. It
Have
is.
have have you ever lived out of a van?
I have lived out of my car during a 3-week cross-country road trip, but that was the extent. I mean, it was a small 2-door coupe, but I don't know how he does it. I know he's got a Sprinter van, but it's still a little bit claustrophobic, I felt.
Well, it's funny. It's almost like there's a very strong line of delineation when someone says, "Hey, live out of a van." You're like, "Oh, that's cool." When someone says they live out of your car, you're like, "I'm sorry. Are you okay?"
Oh my God. No, I mean he's doing awesome stuff. Like I told you before we hopped on, him and I have been good buds for a couple of years now. He's kind of the first CrossFit mentor I ever had. And so him and I have a great relationship and we go back and forth a lot still, even though he's all over the place. I think now he's back up in Washington though. I think COVID-19 has kind of put him in one spot.
Yeah, I guess you're living out of a van. I'm wondering if it's better to be kind of just nomadic, traveling. I guess you can kind of travel to the places it's not hitting, or maybe you want to time it and go right after. Like now's the time to go to New York City.
I don't know. I mean, when him and I were first chatting when this all kind of happened, he was kind of he wasn't sure how it would affect his lifestyle because they were closing all the national parks, right? And
Oh,
so
that's very true.
him and his partner, they kind of parked up shop a lot at the national parks, and so they kind of had to find a spot to lay low for a while until they figure out where they're going next. So
So you mentioned Seattle. You're now in Tempe.
Tempe,
Where
Arizona, yes,
where else have you lived? Because those are kind of some hot spots. I'm always like I've
yeah.
accidentally done it as well. Like not that the capital region of New York is famous, but Naples, Florida, now Boulder, like hitting
Uh-huh.
all the hot spots. Where else have you been or lived?
So I'm originally from Southern California,
Oh,
from
so you
Orange
got
County,
that's another one, right?
Orange County, and then I actually did my undergrad at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. So I spent a lot of time in LA. And then after I graduated in my undergrad back in 2013, I moved to Florida. I don't know if you're familiar with Melbourne.
Yeah, like Melbourne is where Maverick was from, Maverick
Uh-huh.
CrossFit.
So, yep. And so over near Cocoa Beach.
Yeah.
Yep. So I
So
lived there for a couple of years.
what's your favorite so far? What's your favorite place that you've settled down to?
Honestly, I think number one spot I can't wait to visit, I think is what I think of right now is Seattle, where I had met Joe Bauer. Seattle just kind of feels like, not a good spot to travel to right now.
Yes. Yeah, or it's the right place, right? Like
Or
after,
it's the right place.
as long as you're staying away from assisted living homes, you might, be okay.
Exactly. But other than Seattle, my girlfriend and I have been here in Tempe now for almost 2 years, and we love it here in Arizona. So it's been great here.
So let's talk a little bit about nutrition and especially nutrition during this quarantine. But part of why I wanted to talk to you is at least, with your conversation with Joe is very much based on keto and the ketogenic lifestyle. How'd you stumble upon that?
So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways we could start there, but I mean, honestly, the keto diet has kind of been, I mean, it's very, very popular right now. People could see it as a fad diet. People from the primal ancestral diet movement, as you probably know, that they've kind of always known about ketosis, but in the past probably 5 to 10 years, it's kind of jumped onto the mainstream bandwagon, if you will. And so actually I stumbled upon it and thinking about trying it myself as a CrossFit coach when my girlfriend, she tried it last year. She was struggling with a couple of health issues and stomach issues, and she was on the wrong birth control and had accidentally gained 30 pounds and couldn't get that off. And
Oh,
so I think
wow.
it was actually, yeah, it was actually Joe Bauer. We were hanging out with him when he had stopped through Arizona in his van. We were working out. We were doing some CrossFit at my affiliate over here that I was currently coaching at, and he had just picked her brain at like, what do you think about trying the ketogenic diet? At this point, it sounds like you don't really have anything to lose. We're just trying to find something that will help her get back on track. And so she tried it last year, and she saw great results while doing CrossFit at the same time, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Over the course of about 6 months, she lost about 30 pounds, got back to her normal self. All of her GI issues were gone. And then she kind of stuck with it up until the holidays. And then the holidays kind of happened. And then this past holiday season, she had talked about trying to get me to try it. And I was your classic CrossFitter. I say that because everyone kind of has the same mentality of like, excuse me, I need my carbohydrates. I do CrossFit. It is a glycolytic sport, quote unquote. We need our carbohydrates to get through the workout. And then kind of push came to shove, and I kind of went down the route of like, as a CrossFit coach, nutrition, as much as like as embarrassing as this is to say out loud, I've been coaching CrossFit now for 5 years. Currently prepping for my level 3 test. And nutrition was kind of the thing that I always dreaded talking about with all my clients. Where I was like, oh, this is as bad as politics and religion. I don't want to go down that route. Although I know it's like the basis of everything we do.
And keto is like being a born again. Keto is
Yeah,
like the people that
yeah.
don't, stop talking about religion.
I went down the route of like, let me just help you fix your snatch. I'd rather do that than talk about what you ate last night. And so it kind of push came to shove, and I was like, you know what? Maybe this will be a good like jumping off point to dial in my own nutrition, take a deeper dive, try something I've never tried before. Because my nutrition's always been decent. I was that classic person throughout high school and college where it's like I was athletic enough where I knew how to eat paleo-ish and get by and still have, my cupcakes at night and whatnot, flexible dieting and all that. And then so it was going into the end of this holiday season that we just had, going into January, where I was like, let's do it. Let's figure it out. Let's see, one, if I can do keto and not have my CrossFit suffer. And two, I want to become a better coach. I want to be able to serve my clients better by telling them that I tried this. It maybe worked, it maybe did not work, but at least I tried it. And so that led me down this crazy path. And here we are, 5 months in actually into the ketogenic diet. And I don't actually see myself really turning away anytime soon.
So you're enjoying it. Tell me about what you felt, for a lot of, and let me go back for a moment. Like you mentioned, a lot of people kind of look at it as a fad diet. It's not a fad diet. It's a great diet if done properly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can attest to the fact that most people, I think the issue is it's just semantics. Most people throw out the word keto and they don't really mean keto. They mean low carb,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
so it's like one of those things where it's like we're arguing, but we're not really arguing. So first of all, always good to do what your girlfriend tells you to do, or your wife, right? I had a conversation with my father this week, and he's like, "Happy wife, happy life," and I'm like,
Yeah, I hear
there's,
that all the time, and she drills it in. But it got to a point also where like she went through it, and it was hard. Like we won't sugarcoat that. It was hard from the relationship perspective because I'm over here eating my 5 quesadillas from Chipotle with extra sauce and everything, and then she's cooking her ketogenic recipes in the kitchen, and I'm just waiting for her at the dinner table with all my carbs. And so that definitely was a big aspect of it. I was like, okay, I can also support her in this.
yeah, and if the worst thing you have to do is, change your diet a little bit to make your significant other happy, give it a try. And if it doesn't work, at least you tried. So,
Absolutely.
I at least for the beginning of it, the boxes were still open. This was pre, COVID-19 and all that. How did your performance fare? I think that's, one of the most important questions I like to find out about people that try keto. How did your performance do?
So it was actually really, really crazy to me. And so it's like, I went about this as a 9-week experiment. First 3 weeks just transitioning into low carb, high fat, and then the next 6 weeks full on ketosis. So that was kind of what you alluded to in terms of like going about it the right way and not just dropping carbohydrates cold turkey altogether. But throughout the entire 9-week process is kind of when I looked at all my CrossFit data and I did a couple benchmarks, and I actually was able to stay just as fit as I was. The biggest thing that I noticed, I mean, this kind of comes as a no-brainer, was my gymnastics volume went through the roof. Like suddenly I was able to, my max toes to bar went from 15 to like 25 to 28 in a row with ease. My pull-ups went through the roof at 25 to 35 unbroken with ease. Handstand push-ups felt amazing because I cut about 10 pounds of body fat within that 7-week period alone. And
Oh wow,
so,
so you're
yeah,
a pretty lean guy.
yeah.
So
So
were
I
you
started at 188. And so already fairly lean, 6 feet tall, 188. And by 7 weeks in, I dropped to 178. And using the InBody, for instance, I had dropped a full 5% body fat from 10.5 to 5.6. Kind of crazy. But all my strength kind of stayed the same across the whole board, which is wild.
so let me ask you some specific keto questions. One, when you say keto, what does that mean for the listeners? Because again, most people hear keto, there's like cut out the carbs, which is a
Yep.
huge part of it,
Yep.
but not all of it.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing too. So I mean, when I say keto, one, like I said, the first 3 weeks that I jumped into it, I really tried to ease into just lowering my carbohydrate intake to sub 120 in terms of 120 grams or less.
So that's
Um,
not even that low.
Correct. Yeah. And so as I went into full ketosis, the 3rd and 4th week moving forward, my macronutrient profile kind of went to about 80% fat, 10 to 15% protein, 5 to 10% carbs. But with the amount of calories I was consuming and the active lifestyle which I came from, and I try to tell people that too, in terms of coming from the active lifestyle, coaching 3 to 4 CrossFit classes a day, training for about an hour and a half on my own, and then just being on my feet. I came from a very active lifestyle going into this. And so I was consuming a lot of calories just to hold my 188, right? And my macronutrient profile, as I went more ketogenic and kind of found that sweet spot for me, is really like right now I'm able to consume around 80 to 120 grams of carbohydrates and still stay in ketosis while consuming around 270 to 310 grams of fat. And so my fat numbers are through the roof. My carbs were surprisingly higher than what most people would normally
That's
portray as keto.
Yeah, that's like 4 to 5 times higher. I mean, most people
Yeah,
when they talk keto, they're talking
yeah,
like 25, maybe 50. So
yeah.
what are you doing to check your ketones?
So a couple things. I mean, one, we have me and my girlfriend use the classically inaccurate PP strips, if you will.
So you pee on them.
Yes, and so it was my first experience peeing on a stick, and she's like, "It's not that exciting." I was like, "This is exciting. I've never done this before."
It's more exciting for a guy.
Yeah, and so I mean, those are kind of like the cheapest option out there to test if your body's producing ketones at all, right? I mean, you excrete acetoacetate, which is one of the two main ketone bodies. You don't really excrete beta hydroxybutyrate, which is what comes in supplement form even right now as exogenous ketones. So we kind of use that every now and then just to see if we're actually producing the ketones. But we followed a lot of the work done by Mark Sisson and Anthony Gustin from Perfect Keto in terms of using subjective analysis as well to figure out, can you easily intermittent fast for 14, 16, 18, 20 hours on these on this macronutrient profile with no loss of energy, with no sense of hunger whatsoever. And there are days where we kind of use that more so, just with that subjective analysis. Because I know the other ways you could test if you're in ketosis is with the blood meters, the breath meters. Those cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And we kind of went the cheapo route. But the subjective analysis route has kind of proven more beneficial than we imagined, simply in the sense of, as a CrossFitter, knowing that I could get by with this sort of macronutrient profile and never be hungry ever again has been eye-opening. That was one of the biggest first things that I kind of realized with all the research out there, is knowing that when your body is naturally in this, you can fast and do intermittent fasting, and we do it pretty often, with no sense of hunger whatsoever. And I've always been afraid of intermittent fasting at that point, from the aspect of like, I'm always hungry. I live my life as a CrossFit athlete. I need my carbs. I eat when my carbs tell me to eat.
So,
But
I mean,
kind of changed.
what you're saying is true. It's like, what's more important? Hey, I'm in ketosis, or I'm feeling great,
Yeah.
dropping fat, and performing better than ever. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're truly a CrossFitter, that's what you're chasing. You know, I
Yeah.
remember, I think it was at my first level one, a guy named Tony Budding, you know, OGs will remember him. And he said, chase performance and everything else will follow.
Absolutely.
You know, so really that's the takeaway. So remind me again. So what are your current, like, if you had to, assuming you're doing it right now during this quarantine, are you?
Yes.
So approximately what are your numbers today? Meaning your
Today,
macros. Yeah.
right now, I'm at about 280 grams of fat. My carbs are usually right now, because of just with the way quarantine's affected us, my carbs are on the lower end, closer to 60 to 70 grams. And my proteins always stay consistent at around 150.
So 60 to 70 carbs now?
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, so you've lowered them a little bit since that initial time where they're in the 120 area.
Yeah, that was when I was primary, when I still had access to a barbell. And
Oh, so that's
I
part
was
of it too. You're
pushing,
kind of
yeah.
basing it on your activity level.
Exactly. No, for sure. And that was one of the reasons why a lot of the research out there with, endurance athletes doing ketosis, there's so many cases out there where you could see an endurance athlete stay in ketosis while consuming 150 to 200 grams of carbohydrates, just because of how active that they are. But a lot of it was based on, with my daily routine, that was the best balance I found of macronutrients for me to maintain energy levels, and then while keeping track of my body fat percentage and my total body weight over that 10-11 week period, and going up until where we are now, seeing the dramatic decrease in body fat percentage, performance staying up, muscle mass staying right where it's at. It's been completely mind-blowing, to be honest.
Well, that's interesting, because you're the first person. I've had quite a few people talking about keto on here, and they've had great success. A friend of mine, Becky, E.C. Sinkowski, who a lot of people know, we've talked about it, but you're the first person who's really alluded to the fact that, hey, you can still have carbs, I assume, and fill me in on this, that you're timing those carbs around your workout.
Precisely. So especially when I know I'm gonna, while I was still in the gym before the shutdown happened, most of my carbs, probably 80%, were before the afternoon started. As soon as the afternoon would start, I would coach a class, train for an hour, coach another class, coach an accessory class, and then train for a little bit afterwards, right? And so
you knew
specifically, yeah. Like,
so
I was gonna be on my feet for like 3 or 4 hours. That's when all my carbs were gonna come in.
Did you look forward to that time every day?
Yes and no. I think the hard part was whenever I would forget to time it right. I would hate going into a class feeling bloated, like I just slammed a whole bunch of carbohydrates and whatnot. So whenever my timing was on point, it was great. But I think one of the other misconceptions with keto is just also the restrictive mindset, right? Like, oh, I bet you can't wait to have carbs. I bet you can't wait to have a tortilla. I bet you can't wait to have a burrito. But like, bless my girlfriend's heart. Like, she does a lot of our meal prep, and she does a phenomenal job of finding the recipes that work for us, in which the food is just so good, Jason.
Women are really the best, aren't they?
No, I swear, like someone had asked me like a couple weeks ago, they're like, okay, so what's an example of a dinner you'd have? And I showed them like a photo of my Instagram. I was like, last night we had flank steak with a tablespoon of butter on top, with sauteed broccoli, with a bunch of Parmesan cheese and butter on top of that.
And then right after girlfriends come cheese. Cheese is like, and sometimes cheese overtakes women, but you know what I mean? Because like, yeah,
No, it's ridiculous.
cheese can dub as like, hey, it's great for dinner, but it's also dessert.
Yeah, no,
Like
absolutely.
I could eat a chunk because my wife will be like, "Are you just like that's a lot of cheese?" I'm like, "Back off! It's 2 ounces. Let me live." So give me two ideas. I mean, you gave me a little idea of what a high fat looks like, but what were the carbs you might have had in your afternoon, pre workout, pre coaching?
Most of them came from what I'd call as a big ass salad. I got the recipe from Mark Sisson. A lot of my a lot of my carbs throughout the day, so many high fiber leafy green vegetables, right? And so if I could time that out right, I'd have my big ass salad right before I started my couple hours on the coaching floor and whatnot. I mean, if it's green, it's in there. It
So
just
it's
takes.
like digesting as you're just coaching, and then by the time you're ready to work out, it's like peaking.
Exactly. I mean, if anything, then I'll normally try to time a little bit of a protein shake here and there, some BCAAs, especially right before when I'm about to train myself and hop into class. But for the most part, that's kind of what I do before the evening. I mean, most of my carbohydrates, even still while following this ketogenic approach, I would argue probably 70 to 80% of all my carbohydrates come from leafy green vegetables.
Now, so that brings up an interesting point. Did you get leaner because of its switch to keto or because you're eating cleaner? But I don't know what you were eating like
Yeah,
beforehand.
no, absolutely. I've talked to a few friends about that before too. I think it could go either way, right? I mean, I wouldn't categorize my diet pre-keto as 100% clean. I think it's a lot more stereotypical in terms of what you'd see in a CrossFit coach. At least all the CrossFit coaches that I've ever met, like you eat paleo-ish, and then you go hard when you find food that you really want to enjoy and slam down.
Yeah.
Um, but I was telling folks too, in terms of they'd ask me, so like, are you just eating everything slathered in butter? And I'd be like, yes, but I'm also eating the most vegetables I've ever eaten in my entire life.
And I think there's something to the mindset of like, hey, I'm making this change and like I don't know how to explain it, but you need that switch. And maybe it was the keto switch for you that did it. But speaking of butter, so my wife and I just posted a picture of it on Instagram, made this amazing pizza last night. And we were like, it's the crust. I was like, you can put anything on this. Like it doesn't like you could just, dip it in anything and it'd be
Uh,
delicious. And butter's one of those things too. Like butter makes everything delicious.
like no joke, last night, I mean, if you go to my Instagram right now, it might still be there on my story, we had keto pizza night.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, like I said, so my partner, she does a phenomenal job of like sifting through all the keto crap on the internet, as I like to say. Like there's a bunch of stuff like this is
Yeah,
keto,
like the
that's keto,
nonsense. Yeah.
and I'm like,
And
that's
also like how
fiber.
hard is this going to be to make too, right?
Yeah, and so she does a great job of sifting through all that, and we've found this great recipe for a pizza crust, and it's just like almond flour, one egg, xanthan gum, mozzarella cheese,
What's
and
a xanthan gum?
it's like a binding agent that you
You
use for
hear
a
it a
lot of
lot. Yeah.
like a lot of baking products. It helps gives it a little bit more stickiness and consistency. But like that's all it is, and we get to have pizza. And so when you have crust made from almond flour and mozzarella cheese, and then you just put more mozzarella cheese on top for the actual pizza, it's just cheese on cheese on cheese.
Hey, that's good. That's good stuff. Cheese on
Oh, it's
cheese on
so good,
cheese.
so
I'm
good.
going to give you a little life advice on this episode, Joe. You got to put a ring on that girl. just so you know.
We're
This, I
working on
mean,
it. We're working
uh,
on it.
all right. I mean, I waited a long time, and I'm telling you, you find a girl that'll make you cheese on cheese pizza, you just marry her. You marry her. And if you're surviving the quarantine with her,
Absolutely. No,
I
I
love my
completely agree.
wife, but hopefully I never have to spend this much time with her ever again. But we're surviving, you know? So let's say some listeners are like, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Let's imagine the world opens back up. What are some pieces of advice you might give them to be like, hey, I do want to try this. I want to try this lifestyle.
Biggest thing I would recommend is to not go about it cold turkey, right? I mean, I kind of alluded to that also, or that earlier. I know a lot of friends that have tried it and they said, I felt terrible after the first 3 days. I stopped. And they had the keto flu that people often
Did
refer to.
did you get that at all, or because
I
you
did not.
started? Yeah, see, because you
Yeah.
went to that like kind of mid-range
Yeah,
carbs.
exactly. So like my number one piece of advice would not go cold turkey and try to transition into it. The there's a really good book out there by Mark Sisson. I believe it's the or the keto reset diet. And he kind of
Okay.
outlines a good like 3 week transition in there. We kind of followed that ish while we were going into this. And I think it really, 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 really helped because my girlfriend did not have the keto flu. I didn't have the keto flu. My energy actually went up as I dropped all my carbs, which is why it was so confusing.
So yeah,
Um,
I mean, yeah, you're one of the few people that I've ever heard say my energy went up.
yeah, it was a
So
lot.
So, making that slow transition, I think is vital as well. Of course, if they're listening and they're CrossFitters, they're going to want to dive all in. But yeah, start slow, implement it there. What are some other little things? Maybe you got some tips, some tricks.
I think one of the biggest things that I talk to, I mean, obviously, I think both your audience and the people I work with on a regular basis, they kind of fall into that same category of they do CrossFit, right? And so for a lot of folks that do CrossFit that want to try keto, I also try to recommend to my athletes, if you're not making a living as a CrossFit athlete, don't take yourself so seriously in the gym.
Well, that's great advice. And that's the similar advice that Fern and I put out there all the time. Like, you're not that cool kind of thing. Like,
Yeah,
you're
no, I mean,
just exercising, dude.
I talked to a lot of folks with like, but my performance will completely drop if I stop having carbs. And I talked to them, and I was like, well, how important is your performance versus dropping 30 pounds of body fat
Right.
versus trying to find those abs that we've been looking for the past year and a half
And I think
versus
that's hopefully something
yeah.
that's getting rectified during this quarantine period. I know for me, it's been eye-opening to like, hey, just have fun in your exercise again. Just move. I mean, I've talked extensively about the Peloton, but it's like
Mhm.
hopping on the bike for 30 minutes is like get your heart rate up. Like, enjoy yourself and I love it. Don't take yourself too seriously when it comes to exercise. And like you're saying, it's like, what's more important? I mean, the fact that you can clean or snatch this or being 20 pounds lighter and actually being healthier.
No, for sure. And like I said, I think one of the most eye-opening things for me throughout this process, like I said, even like I'm no keto expert, but by any means, just being like 5 months into mixing this with my CrossFit life, but like it's been really eye-opening to see that I got fitter and my strength numbers stayed the same while I lost just pounds and pounds of body fat.
That, it, that's
Like it
typically
sounds like a
unheard
dream.
of. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like I was talking to someone about it. I was like, it sounds like a dream come true. And like, I feel like I got this little secret over here. And I'm like, hey, do you want to eat steak covered in butter? Like, do you want abs?
So
Good
how
talk.
often do you step away from keto and just have like a burrito, like you said, or something pizza, like standard pizza? How
Yeah,
often will you do something like that? And also, what is the impact of that after?
great question there. And so I've talked a lot of folks about that as well because they're like, well, I can't give up my favorite food. It's blank. It's cupcakes. It's in my case, it's tater tots and breakfast burritos and sushi, all you can eat. I try to. Well, it's been really, really cool since we've gone about this process, and a lot of the research out there kind of pointed towards it. Also, is this element of metabolic flexibility, right? As your body becomes less carbohydrate dependent and gets used to utilizing fatty acids and ketones. When you quote unquote get pushed out of ketosis, your body gets more efficient at getting back into it, right? And so that's been a really, really cool thing to see, where me and my girlfriend, we can go out, and I think it was maybe like 2 weekends ago, we slammed some breakfast burritos at our favorite place here in Tempe, right next to Arizona State University. They got this great breakfast joint. Shout out to Burrito Express. We
You got it
slammed
to go,
them.
I assume.
Yes, we did. We ate them in the parking lot, though. We could not wait. I love a good breakfast burrito. And we had a little bit of a tummy ache just because of the influx of carbohydrates and all the insulin.
And also,
production
you're not eating out probably as much, so no
Exactly. So
oil,
a
that kind of stuff.
little bit of a tummy ache, but then otherwise went back to eating ketogenic the rest of the whole weekend, and we were back into it and felt totally fine. Now, I think it would be very different if we did like a carb binge or a refeed day, which you sometimes hear people talk about within the ketogenic diet. We're going for like a full day or 2 full days of refeeding with carbohydrates to work on your insulin sensitivity. But I think for us, we never wanted to go down that route of having to do so much work to get back into it. And so it's been really cool to build that metabolic flexibility where we can enjoy a cupcake and then maybe have a little bit of a tummy ache because it was totally worth it, and then head back into ketosis, and we feel good.
Definitely hashtag worth it. You brought up sushi. What's your favorite sushi?
Oh my God. Favorite type of sushi? I love a good Philadelphia roll. A good Philadelphia roll, or like a spicy salmon mixed with a California roll. Honestly, if you come down to Tempe or the Phoenix area, we'll head over to Scottsdale. I know this great place. It's like $12 and you eat all you can eat. But if you don't finish what you pay or what you ordered, you pay for the extra.
That's fair. First of all, I love a good Philadelphia roll. Cream cheese and smoked salmon is like,
Yep.
one of my thing. I love it. We went to Vegas, and of course, notorious for buffets, but it was like the kind where you order, and it was amazing. And then we've got a great spot here in Boulder called Japango, and then on Tuesdays they do like off the menu, all you can eat.
Wow.
And I'll eat till I'm like devastatingly just sick and hurting, but it's worth it.
It's so totally worth it. Especially, I think at the end of the day, like I've talked to a lot of folks about this, the most surprising insight for me following the ketogenic diet, while also just being so passionate about the CrossFit lifestyle and the CrossFit methodology, was that through the ketogenic diet approach, my quality of life has actually increased dramatically. Not that like I lived a life where I was sad or upset or I've lived a great life. But I was very surprised at how this approach to food kind of made me appreciate food a lot more, but also from just like the aspect of enjoying how delicious food can be, whether it's carbohydrate heavy or not. We've just been able to really explore food in our house ever since we kind of went about this approach. And I really did not expect to I tell people all the time, I was like, the stuff that I eat, I'm living my best life. I know my girlfriend's a lot of the results of that. And I don't know if I would have found these ingredients and these meals if it wasn't for her. But like, we live a really good life in the food that we get to eat every single morning, every single night.
And I think you appreciate it more when you're, before the whole quarantine, I was eating super clean and then having more like a cheat meal on the weekends. And you appreciate it more than I'm just going to have it every night.
Yeah.
So 2 more questions. One,
Hit me.
Based on your experience with keto, what's your opinion on the carnivore diet?
Oh, carnivore diet. I don't know enough.
All right.
I'm going to put it that way. I know a lot of the stuff that's out there. But I've always been very, very precarious to dive into debate with stuff that I'm not an expert in or that I don't have firsthand experience in.
I'm interested in trying it. We had Mark Bell on the podcast not too long ago, and big proponent of it. And it was like right as the world was shutting down. And I was like, I'm okay with trying it. I don't want to be invested in it and then not able to get meat.
Yeah.
And you're home all day, and I'm eating relatively still healthy, but I'm being a lot more flexible than I used to be. Just because you're home and
of course.
you're bored and whatnot. But anyway, I'm interested in trying it once the world opens back up, and I feel like I can be part of it is just leaving the house. Like, and when you're gone and you're doing stuff for a few hours, you're not thinking about food all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you're so, but my follow up question would be, earlier on you kind of talked about, hey, I don't want to talk about nutrition. Now that you've done this, has that changed?
Oh, it's been phenomenal. So I
I mean,
mean,
obviously you're on my show, you're on Joe's show, so you're talking about it a little bit, but I mean,
no, I'm talking about it a lot of it. And so I mean, like I said, like I've always, how do I put this quite frankly? I've always wanted to coach on a more intimate level with my athletes, right? And so as a CrossFit coach, my biggest hiccup and the biggest thing that I've always grown frustrated with was that, like, I can work with this person, that person, this person for 60 minutes, make it the best hour of their day. You see that?
exactly. I like it. Yeah.
But I don't see or can control the other 23 hours, right? And so I think that was one of the hardest things for me is I wanted to be able to coach athletes more intimately through their lifestyle outside of the box. I've always wanted to find some way to do that. And so while I kind of took this on is kind of how the whole, I started my endeavor with online nutrition coaching. And so first working with a couple of athletes that I've known across the globe and a couple of athletes here and there that I've worked with in the past. And it's been so eye-opening and just so much more rewarding from that aspect, because now it's like, yes, even if I coach you in person, that's great. But now these athletes, if I continue to coach them online through their nutrition, we get to improve quality of life by addressing like the full-on lifestyle habits to get them to enjoy food again outside of just that 60 minutes or so that they spend in the CrossFit gym, right?
That's awesome. I mean, that's really what it's all about. I mean, I've talked about this recently. It's like, cool. I like making people move better. Like, it's fun. I
Oh,
want you
I
to,
love that
be
shit.
safer. No, it's enjoyable. I mean, it's what I do. But more importantly is I want you to have a better life.
Yeah.
And, this hour in the gym will attribute to that, but nothing compared to what your nutrition will do, what your stress will do, all that good stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to see that,
No,
you,
absolutely.
you put it to the test yourself
Yeah,
first.
and I think, and I've talked to a lot of fellow coaches and friends that coach across the country and whatnot. And I think it all came back to, like, I had a deep-seated frustration as a coach. I think with I was avoiding the nutrition topic with my athletes. B, it always felt like I'd run into athletes that would work their butt off in the gym, but not see the results because of the other 23 hours and because of how they eat and what their diet looked like. And so for me, it's like, I've been coaching CrossFit for 5 years now. I've worked at 4 different affiliates across the United States. And like, I saw it everywhere. And I'm just like, I feel that I need to start using my strengths in a different way where I could fully get those people that frustrate me because they're not getting the results that they're working so hard for on this intimate experience. And so it's been awesome, man.
I love it. If people want to reach out to you, Joe, where can they find you to learn more about implementing keto or getting a coach or
Oh,
just you want to find a friend to grab some sushi with?
yeah. Well, I mean, if you're in the Phoenix area after COVID is over, I'd love to grab some sushi with you.
After, yes.
I don't know how I feel about ordering sushi to go right now. But
It's
if
no
you're
different than that Starbucks I saw you
I don't
drinking.
know. But if you're looking for me online, on Instagram at Joe Ward with 3 D's. And then if you're interested in learning a little bit more about my nutrition stuff, it's
That's
eatyourheartoutnutrition.com.
cool. I like that.
Eatyourheartoutnutrition.com. Yes, sir.
Very cool, Joe. Well, it's been great. You've motivated me, I think for so many people they're like keto is this drastic shift, and obviously it's a change, but it's more subtle than than people think it has to be. And like you said, base it off of how you're looking, how you're feeling, and how you're performing, rather than simply, what your pee, like you put it, tells you, right?
Good one. No, I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, it always comes back to, I always ask athletes, like, what's your why? Like, why are you here? What are your deep down, like, if you're going to be honest with yourself, what are your goals? And are we currently hitting them? And if not, let's make the adjustments. It might be.
Everybody wants everybody wants to hit their goals, but they want to do it in the easiest way possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So this probably isn't easy, but it probably is simple, and you just have to start. And you can start by reaching out to Joe and asking him some questions. Because I'm always a fan of someone that is like, hold on, let me try it myself.
Yeah.
And that's what you
I've had a
did.
lot of respect for people like that too. And I think that's one of the things that really drove me down this route, where it's like, I want to be that person that helps other people that way.
Awesome. Well, you are. Thanks so much for hopping on the show. Uh, go spend some time with your girlfriend. She's taking good care of you. And we look forward to having you back on in the future.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day, and thanks again to our special guest. We appreciate all you guys do for us with Best Hour of Their Day when it comes to sharing our posts on Instagram, when it comes to subscribing to us on YouTube, when it comes to the constant feedback. We are grateful and we appreciate it. We are trying to build a community based on coaching development and becoming the best version of yourself. And it goes without saying that we couldn't do without all of you. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Season 1 of Dropping In is out. We are getting tremendous feedback and we'd love for you to check it out. Leave us a comment on there. Head over to our Instagram. Give us a follow. Like our pictures. Feel free to share anything that resonates with you. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback for us, please don't hesitate. Email us besthouroftheirday@gmail.com. Thanks again. Until the next episode, we hope you've had the best hour of your day.